Hi, Facebook. Hi, Instagram. This is Oya Myra on this beautiful day of Conversation Starters. Yay! I'm so excited because I have been able to be consistent with getting into my conversation starters. As you notice in the title, before we begin Conversation Starters, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow RVPP Solutions Holistic Health Advocacy 360 Wellness. What is Holistic Health Advocacy? Holistic Health Advocacy is first meeting the human body and 360 of wellness mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. We deal with yoga, we deal with meditation, we deal with fitness class. This season in the winter, we are dealing with sensual awakening every Monday at 7 p.m. Make sure that you join us in class so that you can open up your sensuality and you can find a safe space in your expression of thyself without the toxic ideologies that we have to compete with each other and we're in self-expression. RVPP Solution provides that. The second component of RVPP Solution is making sure that you're in a good state of wellness so that you can do pro se advocacy and you can understand the mechanisms of the institutions that have been drafted for you to utilize for your benefit. What does that mean? That we participate in town halls together, that we go into spaces where we're understanding about community accountability, that we address the things in our community that might be harmful to us and stopping us from being in a space of love and healthiness and safety and stability for us, and also learning to detach in a loving way when we need to. The third component of RVPP Solutions is understanding the research socially and legally. So if you need assistance with that, we are here for you. As I stated before, we are a company, a firm of 360 Wellness, and one of the components of that is making sure that we're in a good state of wellness. So we started this segment of what we call Conversation Starters, right? Me, Oya Myra, I noticed in spaces of Black American community that there were a lot of taboo subjects that were being resistant about talking about. We'll stay at the surface level about them, but we never really got in depth into it because many of the times in our space of healing, we were met with so many spaces of trauma on a micro level within the geographical area of America, and watching the extreme violence that's happened in our community. And then as I step forth into this world and understanding this space a little bit more, I understand that this is a human issue, right? It's not a Black American issue. This is a human issue that we talk surface level about things, and then we have these prominent people who bring forth theories. But like the famous, beautiful, intelligent human being that resided in the city of Chicago, Fred Hampton, stated, theory without practice ain't shit, right? So there's a lot of theory that happens in the human psyche, but not enough practicing of it, because when it happens into practicing, we turn back into the spaces of the indigenous civilizations that sustain us in the state of peace before the dark sun, right? That is the explanation of human existence within what we consider to be Central America and South America, and also in the highly melanated people that migrated before this idea of European colonization to those spaces to create civilizations. There was a point of the human society in which we went through the dark sun, and now we're in the light, right? And a lot of people, they're slowly moving to it, but I'm someone who's fast paced. Yeah, I got a lot of fire in me. So as a gym and I can only move in the spaces that I have to, because I can't slow down, because I have a job and a task to do. And that's why we have conversation starters. Conversation starters is to first get you into a space of opening your throat chakra. Okay, I've been getting a lot of energy of blue and red being forth put me decolonizing and eradicating gang culture that's embedded within my own city, and this idea of red and blue. I understand now the Bloods and the Crips and where that came from, because there was an ideology of timelines that were created during the 50s and 60s when there was a lot of drug usage, right? So in that time where everybody was supposed to be in the space of peace and oh, I love my brother, people were still praying on each other spiritually. And you can go to that when you look at the Jim Jones video. A lot of us thought that that was less melanated people that went to the island with him. No, it was highly melanated people, Black American people, who were following behind a white savior and went there and were massacred, right? Because they went to a place with people who were acting as if they were allied to that person, preying on someone who was vulnerable, who just wanted to be in a space of peace with this person who was not equipped to not deal with their homicidal tendencies, right? And I really want highly melanated people to tap into their spaces of self-defense, so that you won't be a willing victim to people who don't want to talk about their homicidal and suicidal tendencies that are embedded in their body because they're resilient to change. Let's talk about it. Conversation starters. Hey, how y'all doing? So for this conversation, I know I came with a boom because that's just who I am. The conversation starters right now, their community is safety. Community is safety. And why am I bringing this up? Because there is a lot of fear mongering that is moving forth, and a lot of people jumping into their anti-blackness bag right now. A lot of people are jumping into their anti-woman bag right now. They're letting it spill out because, for those 4 years during COVID, I feel like that was a immense time for people to move and healing. Me, I went from eating shitty food because I was on a surgery table in 2020 right before the pandemic, and then I got addressed with this thing at my former employer office, them trying to basically create a space to fuck me over, and having to detach right after surgery table. Like, they took it as a moment, oh, she's hurt, she's in law school, let's fuck her life over in this moment. And I was just like, on a psychological level, I was like, nah, I gotta detach. So from the last 4 years, I've been in the space of immense healing, learning myself spiritually, and having those who are, we debunked a lot of things, right? So I see so many people now like, oh, this is the perfect time for Black Americans to get back in community with each other. Ooh, ooh. This is the perfect time for Americans to get back together. Ooh, ooh. Did y'all not know what y'all was doing before the pandemic? That's the problem. People take you around that tree, right? It's called the forgetfulness tree. Yeah. You have to look at the components of the historical trends, not just in the last 5 to 10 years. You have to really educate yourself on the human experience. And when I say about the forgetfulness tree, you want us to forget about all the immense trauma that you just put us through so that we can get right back in the space with you. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Community is safety is a real big point that I'm trying to hit. Is like, don't ask me to be in community with you when you're only creating spaces in which you can harm me. That's not community. And I think that highly melanated people in America really need to grow up. And highly melanated women who are in community with other highly melanated women, that they need to be in a space of safety and security so that they can emotionally and mentally develop themselves, so they can understand the power in which they hold, and also, catch the spaces of the highly melanated women who prey upon that, right? Because not every highly melanated woman is a woman of safety. Let's make that clear. As a single Black American woman, the amount of predatory behavior that elder Black women have done to me in this space, they have projected toxic drug abuse upon me. They have projected extreme violence upon me. I've even had highly melanated women put me in a space where they want to see a man of my age put his hands on me because I would not allow him to get into my personal space. These are things that happen in the city of Chicago. And because I was bringing light to it, I had a lot of extreme trauma come towards me. A lot. So the highly melanated woman, she gets stronger spiritually as she get older. But if she's pushed into a space of depression, unworthiness, constant abuse, she's going to internalize that and project that upon other women. And that's all women. I'm not just experiencing that from highly melanated American women. I am experiencing that from highly melanated women from the continent of Africa. I'm experiencing that from highly melanated women from the Latino community. Let's talk about how Hispanics are infiltrating by taking on Black Americans who suffer from low self-esteem, more specifically Black American men, and utilizing their power to level up at the expense of Black American people. So when I heard that man say that, what the Hispanic told him was he don't like the way that Black Americans trade on each other. And I'm thinking to myself, ain't no Hispanic ever talked to me like that. It's because you picked a Black American who suffered from low self-esteem, and that is the way that they act. That is the way that they act. That is not the way that Black Americans act. That is the way you pick a particular Black American who does that type of behavior, and now you're projecting it and generalize it to all Black Americans. And then, because he's in a space of safety and probably a place where he was never able to exercise his spiritual gifts, he's now projecting that something's wrong with Black Americans without understanding that, without going through the whole plight of Black Americans. They're just looking at that individual experience. So, that's why I want to talk about community is safety. So we're going to go through a couple of bullet points that I wanted to bring forth. These things have been jargon at me. So the first thing that was on the agenda, I got so much, y'all. It's so much that has to come out, but we're going to keep this at a good time frames. So, emotionally and psychologically and physically traumatized people, remember that I'm not projecting this to just Black Americans. This is a human thing. And one thing I do adore about the cultural perspectives outside of a Western lens, even though it might give us a little bit of social power, it limits us in our human experience. That, communities like the Aztecs and the Incas and the Ashantis and the Ghanaians and the Kemits, they had a certain balance of justice within our society. And just like any other civilization, there was a time where the vibrations were moved from a space because people went into their shadows, majority versus standing in the light. This is a human thing. It's not an American thing. It's not a Western thing. It's not an Eastern thing. It's a human thing, right? So emotionally and psychologically and physically trauma, and I got this from Dr. Umar's perspective of a presentation that he was giving, but I kind of reframed it for my understanding and for me not to handicap people in a space of identity. So emotionally and psychologically and physically traumatized people are not in a space to exercise love, safe love, and to exercise healthy, safe love in a certain capacity, because they are operating within the selected choices of companionship that have been determined for them. I think not enough people speak about how Black Americans are placed into arranged marriages, or we are placed into arranged relationships, and that has been nothing more prevalent than me, example for me, especially as an individual, because the last person that I engaged with seriously, not wanted to date, because the last person I wanted to date, he just got scared and he just ran away. I'm used to that. I'm never going to reduce myself as a human being. You're not going to keep me in the capacities of the societal labels in which you think I should be in. That's just not going to fucking happen, right? So I smile because the last person that I dated was beautiful, but when it comes time to really stand in the space of love, many people are afraid and terrified. And I am such a loving being. I'm so authentic and real. So people project to me that I'm not what's the word? That, when people project to me that they want me to operate in a certain way as a Black American woman so that they can feel better about themselves, that shit, when men tell me now, women just don't know how to treat a nigga. That's manipulation. Get the fuck on. one of the most loving, devoting, compassionate, nurturing women on this earth is the Black American woman. We are so ride or die that I really feel like we need to reclaim in my motherfucking time. So the person before that, like the serious part of it, when we talk about arrangements or relationships, because now my vibe had to change because the last person I took seriously, the way that some Black American men have moved into a spaces with other women culturally and still try to police Black American women and hurt us is some bullshit. The last Black American man that I engaged with had a woman from what is the lady from? Central America. Her people are from Central America. She's American, but she migrated. Her people migrated here. And he is still, through the embodiment of Black American women, trying to spiritually, because Black men are spiritual, right? You know, they downplay their acts for us. It's manipulation. Because you want to, your ego will have you in a space thinking that you're the in charge of somebody, and we're all free, right? When you're free, you get to exercise your freedom. That's why I'm about equity, right? But if your equity is at the expense of me, fuck you. So there are Black American men who are with women of different cultures and different identity, and then using the scope that this is a Black woman to fuck Black American women up, because of their jealousy that they've had for so long towards us, to see us maneuver through educational systems, to see us rapidly create businesses, to see us still be creative in the same amount of trauma that they experience. There is not a Black American man that has experienced more trauma than a Black American woman, because you just don't da-da-da. But when they find and solidify women of a different culture, whether they be highly melanated, identify as Black or African, or they be less melanated and they identify as another culture, because highly melanated women come as Cuban, they come as Dominican, they come as Jamaican, they come as Virgin Islanders. There's a certain cultural aspect that they don't have the attachment to the amount of the reality of the situation for us. And we have to be careful that a lot of these women carry internalized misogyny. So when people are looking to Black Americans and they're saying, why has your family not functioned in the same way that our family has functioned, when they're coming from predominantly Black communities, they're not also stating that the reason that their family was able to stay into places because these women were in the spaces of normalizing trauma, of normalizing abuse. They culturally accept this as the way of the engagement between the man and a woman. There was literally a woman that I was listening to before I got on here, and she proved my point. She's saying that women are women across the world, and she said like in a tone like we're always going to be competitive with each other. But what is when we're comparing each other? You know, the great Nigerian author. And I have to make sure, I don't want to mispronounce her name, so I'm going to make sure I say her name correctly before we end this video. She said we teach women and girls to compete, not for jobs, not for accomplishment, but for men, right? So when that woman on TikTok said that, you know, she was alluding to that women play games where we put each other at spaces, and you could never imagine, you know, we have this Western society, you could never imagine what some of these women had to go through. Why are we bonding off of that? Why are we bonding off of that? Why is the identity of femininity based on how much she can struggle to obtain the biological male? And that's why I want the Black Americans to think. Sit, pause, and heal yourself. Think. Just think. Take a moment to breathe, to think, right? We are so obsessed with death out here. We're so obsessed with death. So when you see an agent of life, when you see an agent of light, you think that person is in a move. Well, we are, to eradicate this shit, right? I don't want to be fixated on your toxic Christianity where God literally has me on my knees begging and pleading, and I can't see spirituality until I'm in pain. That's literally the plantation mindset. That You have to, in my city, right, with other women, in order for them to show any type of fuck, and this is collectively, not individually, because I'm an individual who sees the human experience. But I can tell you culturally, in American society, more specifically for the area in which I come from, because of the extreme trauma that has been happening for decades without any uh, real remedy for it, and understanding and not labeling it as it was something fantastic like the Great Migration. One shit great about that, we were fleeing domestic terrorism, and that was in the age of our grandmothers. That's not great grandmama, that's not great granddaddy, that's grandmama age. Like our grandmama came up during that time, she was fleeing our grandfather, right? Let's stop detaching the idea, just focusing on our grandmother. We do that because of the things that are in our code. But our grandparents were fleeing domestic terrorism and watching black bodies hang from fucking trees. So you think that didn't do anything to your psyche in the reduction of the humanity of the person, right? And then when you have someone who migrates here, who looks like you, who tries to reduce your plight. No, we don't want to continue to be fixated on trauma, but you will not erase our past so that you can fit into the spaces and manipulate the people whom you really hate to level up in the space that we created through our bodies. That's what I'm trying to say, right? And I was trying to say that, you know, in companionship, in relationship, and wanting to hug and want to be soft in this space of a city that, you know, I'm going to go down to that point about the emotional and psychological and physical traumatized people are not a space to exercise love in a certain capacity because of the companionship choices chosen from them. You know, there's a point, especially in my city, it's like black American men, when it comes to the companionship with black American women, we have a lot of elders who are advanced spiritually as fuck, right? And they suffer tremendously from internalized misogyny because there has been a culture in Chicago that calls, I have to, you know, that calls black women manly and ugly and what's another word? Manly, ugly, aggressive, all of these things, and they start labeling you this as you transition from girlhood into adulthood. And right in between that time, and that's most people here, that's why a lot of people were upset about the R. Kelly situation, because less melanated men, European American men, have been doing this culturally in their society for a long time. And these men in this world, they don't want to, some, not all, I don't want to say these men, but the elder generation, you know, that time, the reason these girls start getting called these things and being abused at that time, because they experience extreme sexual trauma. They experience extreme molestation. They experience extreme physical abuse, not only from adults, but from other children. I remember when I was on a bus and I was just, you know, moving in the space of companionship with a black American boy. You know, the spaces where I get to, we didn't get just to have the fucking stories of of boy likes girl and girl likes boy. It was always some fucking trauma attached to it. And that's what when you don't deal with that in your childhood, you start seeing it in your adulthood. In that story, I walked on the bus. I accidentally stepped on the girl's shoes. Because I stepped on the girl's shoes, she got mad, because this is what poverty does to you. You think a pair of shoes is the mechanisms in your scoping of your value. And it was a baby. I don't have no ill will to her. So what I'm saying is, even in our childhood, we have been groomed to accept the detachment of the black American male and real protection of us, right? He can play hard, but he can't really be hard, because we have to worry, and not in the scope. He can do all these demonic, dirty shit in our community, right? But he can't exercise that outside in the world, because we have to make sure that we afford the less melanated woman, white, Asian, Hispanic, the comfortability that they can rule over us. That's a slave mentality. And the Black American man is tired of that storyline. So, but he still wants access to the enslaved Black American woman, right? He still wants access to the African woman who knows her role of being subservient to every other woman. And if you're not that, then you don't know how to treat a nigga, right? You have to know how to go into the spaces to manipulate and play the you gotta know how to play that in order to protect yourself and your children. But what the fuck are we protecting ourselves from? If everybody's supposed to be an ally now, if everybody's supposed to be so in the space of, oh, we're moving in progression, what are we protecting ourselves from? Please let me know. So the move to psychologically break the highly melanated girl, especially in a place like Chicago. I smile now because it was like it's really crazy to me to see these communities of people who are 45 and up literally move to hurt and harm, create storylines to control us, and make themselves feel better as they go through this aging process without really holding each other accountable. So you have all these highly melanated and less melanated people for some reason who hate each other, but they ain't made no moves to ratify it, right? Instead, it is the European American, it is the Black American, it is the Hispanic American, it is the Asian American who internalize their hatred for each other and turn it on their children. What do you think, like when those babies of Generation Z were standing up for themselves, that some millennials and the generation before them jumped in to like show these kids that we're gonna tame you, we're gonna hurt you. That's why I don't have children, because the millennials in which I'm watching, they have really taken on fear as the way to develop these children, and they really are becoming the ones who already have children. There is a deep-seated jealousy and envy towards adults like me, male and female, who have not made children yet, because for some reason they think that our children are going to be competition with their children. And I don't think that's a new phenomenon. I think it's just an idiotic phenomenon. I think it's idiotic because many of them have made children through arranged marriages. They're saying, oh, I love this person when I was 8 years old. Baby, no, you didn't. Your parents projected to you that you was gonna be with that person. You don't make a choice at that age, right? You're in a likability. You haven't even developed you're in the beginning stage of your human development, right? So you were groomed and trained and arranged to be with that person. And now these people who had children at a certain age when they were young, they're developing in their human development, and they have a lot of frustration, they have a lot of anger, and I get that, right? That's why I have sensual awakening class. I want you to move through your sensuality. I want you to do that. I move in the space of creativity, but I had to literally start everything over with conversation starters, because instead of highly melanated women engaging in the space of safety for me, they rather move in the spirit of God only, right? Without holding God accountable. So, when you think about your life trajectory as being full of pain, and as someone who didn't experience that, I see God as love. So when the masculine energy comes in a space that's intensively abusive, I don't comprehend that shit. I don't see God in that way. You're not God. You're playing into this Christian ideology of being the devil. And while you think that it's appropriate to be the devil towards someone like me is because you suffer from anti-blackness, you suffer from colorism, you suffer from self-hatred, and you get mad at me because I can navigate through your shit, still come out on top, and it is what it is, because you don't rule me. you rule and tailor the energy of highly melanated women who do not love themselves, who are desperate and in destitute for companionship. And then it's like a doubling. What I'm seeing now is like a doubling down as I age, which I love aging, but it's like a doubling down of this value, and like, oh, we're going to withdraw you from companionship. You can't. You can't. It is too many women who are obsessed with another woman's sexuality. It is too many women, to talk about that, who are obsessed with how other people's children are going to develop. It is too many women creating storylines just because they rather be a child in engagement with children. And when I say a child, not a child just like in playful manners, a child that's like in a mean girl way. And when I say mean girl way, I mean like they really took on that ideology of hurting other women in order to keep companionship, right? And as single women, you do not have to be a punching bag to procreate in America, okay? Our wombs and our sexualities are not for anyone's ownership. Trying to bully women into being in a family with you is basically the weakest shit ever. There are a lot of things like myself, there are a lot of plates to keep a person in place so that they can't grow in their cells. And I think that is just like, you need to deal with your spaces of abandonment. No one's abandoning you. That's the shit that bothers me when it comes to Black Americans and people, period, right? But my scope in my relationship is Black Americans. They feel, collectively what I see is, when someone gets to the spaces of being a light and exercising their freedom of expression and their artistic value, that they feel like that's a threat on their livelihood instead of follow suit in an example of it, right? I'm going to say that one more time. Trying to bully women into being in family with you is the weakest shit ever. I've seen so many people create these timelines of trauma over and over and over and over again just to put someone in their place, and that place is misery. It's depression. It's fucking and this ideology that women just want somebody to rule over them. Some women, not all women. I don't need to be ruled over. I don't need you to dictate anything to me. There's nothing wrong with me. I do not think that I act and operate in a space that is inadequate for my existence. What I deal with on a constant and daily basis, which I'm trying to eradicate, because I'm trying to eradicate basis, is people's projections of internalized misogyny, internalized fucking sexism, classism, and anti-fucking blackness. And you want me to do the labor of the toxic socialization that you're experiencing, because when you experience someone like me, you have a paradigm shift. And I don't care how much work you put forth and how much you try to play into voodoo and hoodoo and Christianity, which is nothing but the same thing. It's just they kidnap your brain and make you feel like you have to give your power over. That's why most of the time it's been male figures. But the women caught on, so they had to let some female pastors in, because the female pastor was going to let them know that, hey, they're pimping your essence. So they let some women in just to let them in on the secret. But that's what all it is. It's just manipulation of your spirituality and pimping you as a person who you are. But when you try to bully people into community, it means that you have no expectation of changing anything. That you just want to put this person in the place because you think with your I'm going to that. It's called plantation mindset. Let's see where we're at on the time frame, because I could just talk and talk and talk. I want to see how far we at. Oh, we're only at 33 minutes. Okay, so you think that you are entitled. That's why I want to rectify is the plantation mindset and the intellectual laziness and comfortability of Black American identity with with companionship and family, right? So, and this is a human thing, but because my interest is healing, first the community in which I'm in, but I'm a humanist, so this really can apply to everybody. I'm gonna stop just saying Black American. As a human, and this experience, these are the things that I think we need to eradicate, because when you think about that plantation mindset, you have to realize that at every component of human history, everybody was a slave at some point. Every civilization moved into a place of enslavement, point blank period, by another group. The Europeans enslaved themselves. The Romans and the Greeks dog walked every nation in Europe. Okay, all right. So when you talk about the Jesus being crucified, you need to understand that European Americans, before the idea of what Europe was, they was fucking killing the shit out of each other. Okay, and that was a time period all the way up to what we consider to be the woman who just ceased away, the person that they anointed to be their queen, Elizabeth. Okay, so from European Americans enslaved Irish. They enslaved the Scottish. The English enslaved each other. The French and the English was always at each other's throat. The only time in their history that they came to agreement was when it came to the traumatizing of highly melanated people. And that's what we have to learn in our scope of looking at the human identity, that recognizing when certain groups of people, whether they be highly melanated or less melanated or in between, when they group together and create forces to harm other people to yield certain results that's going to keep them in a space of comparability at the state of someone's oppression. That's what we have to eradicate. That's what we have to eradicate. So the plantation mindset and most recent history of the enslavement within the human experience, because as I stated before and I'll state it again, and these are just historical facts, everybody in civilization has experienced some form of slavery within their society. So when, and I'm going to say this before I go into the plantation mindset about companionship, understanding as a Black American, many people move to instate a certain mechanism of shame upon us. I was just talking to a brother from Cameroon and another brother from Guinea, from the equator. And when they spoke to me, at first it was initially of a tone. With the guy from Cameroon, he wasn't rude, but as I progressively started to speak in a mannerism that I always speak, with high authority of self, with love and with confidence, this, he wanted to point to me. He did his finger like this. I said, yeah, get your motherfucking finger out of my face. But I said, let him talk, Myra. He said, what do you identify as? I said, as African American. You think you're African? Yeah, I know I'm African. African American. It's the thing. He's like, no, I don't think you're African American. You're not African. I'm not African because I don't submit to you, sir. You see me as a highly melanated woman. I didn't submit to you in conversation, so now my Africanness is questionable, right? And then he's like, well, why would you call yourself African American? European, why don't we call you European American? I said, that's so crazy. I literally just wrote a case in pro se where I identified the white American as European American. That's crazy, because I literally just did that. And he was like, oh, I don't even, English is not even my primary language. French is my primary language. I don't even understand what you're saying, really. You're throwing all these things. I mean, you understand what I'm saying. And I don't say that in a dismissive way of a hatred and anything like that. What I'm saying is people play on the Black American in the most recent history being enslaved. But actuality, someone like me will go through each one of them. Because I can go to Cameroon and I'll probably look at your history and I'll say, what did y'all do to each other? In most recent history. What did the effects of colonization do to your nation, sir? Oh, all right. And then when people from different cultures speak to me, the beautiful beautiful, beautiful African people that come from the continent. You will not talk down upon me or make me feel some type of way because you feel that the moment that as a highly melanated person within the American society, when I level up spiritually, that's a threat to you. No one's coming after you because y'all know y'all was fucked up for leaving us here. That's the truth. It's the internalized guilt that you feel. That's why I appreciate Ganya, because Ganya is having a realistic conversation without being in trauma bonding. They talk about the experience of what happened, but they say, hey, we're moving forth now. I don't like to stay in places of trauma. So when we speak about places like Asia and the beauty of Asia, but let's not act like in recent history, baby, you haven't been in extreme sexism with your women. Because when you tell somebody and dictate to somebody that they can't have children because you might be overpopulated, baby, that's slavery. That's enslavement of your body. And they killed your children. So while you're fixating on my identity as Black American, you're trying to stop yourself from the healing mechanism of what your people who look like you did it. And we're not, baby, I learned so many things about the Red Nation, what Japan was before the bombing. Do y'all want to talk about that? What Koreans, Southern and Northern, did to each other. But you're so fixated on Black America. You come here and you try to kick me because you're trying to erase the actual extreme trauma that you have done to each other as humans. You want to talk about what happens in Central America? What the drug war really was? And why I don't entrust Latina and Latino men like that with just like a broad wipe? Because in the 80s and 90s, you teamed up with those who considered themselves to be European white Americans, and you traumatized the Black American community. That's why when Black American men come into a space with Latino and Latina women, and you get all of our drip, right? And then you try to utilize their spiritual power because they have knowledge about the Orishas and they understand the melanation part of it. And then you try to create spaces of abuse, to create spaces of revenue through the trauma of Black American women and our children because you give no fuck about us for real. Nobody wants to talk about that in the 80s and 90s, in the early 2000s, what you did? Oh, and the extreme trauma of molestation and incest that goes on within the Latino community. But y'all fixated on Black American women and us reproducing slaves. That's why you want to enact that story. That's why I say, watch what you eat. Because people will say things to you and it opens vibrations in your body. You can't do that with me. Oh, and I ain't even started on the white American woman, the European American woman. That this woman was so frustrated about the election results. And she was talking about when there's no space for white men to abuse other racial groups, how they beat the shit out of white American women. Has a fucking infection of incest and molestation. I'm not trying to keep you in that space. I'm just trying to make it aware that Black Americans are not the only ones who are hindered on this space of an element of darkness. But I do see the moves and mechanisms and you trying to keep us there. And then to add insult to injury, the multiple Black American women who normalize trauma as their identity, and when they see another Black American woman moving forth in it, that she is eradicating texturism, she's eradicating colorism, she's eradicating anti-Blackness, that you utilize the power of God because you have not decolonized your mind or done the spaces of it, that you try to reproduce timelines where that Black American woman is harmed for the sake of your masculine energy feeling powerful, an illusion of power. Because it worked for so long in material gains, and it got us out of a space of darkness when after the civil rights movement, when we lost prominent intellectual human beings. But there's like we had a cease of leaders. No, the fuck we didn't. No, we didn't. We have not lost a cease of leaders. We've had plenty of black prominent leadership after those who were massacred in the civil rights movement. What happened is our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our uncles, and our aunties, they did not have a capability of healing. So what they're doing is keeping you in the trauma loop that we not fucking there no more. And when you spit that trauma loop, you fail to recognize how you are handicapping our people. And then when you see someone like me, if your brain automatically goes into trigger mode to eliminate, that you are the fucking problem. That you are the weakest link. And I love you, but I have to say it. That you are manifesting a space of extreme trauma for our people. And you say, well, I'm trying to protect my children. No one's coming after your children. That is a mental fucking capacity of enslavement on you. And you're trying to rectify and justify your shadow with the fact that you're saying that you're following God, and you're not. You're not walking in God's essence. You're walking in the very essence in which you are afraid of, which is your devil energy. Because if you ever sat there and justified the eradication and the death of a highly melanated woman or girl, Kanika Jenkins, Kiera Coles, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, you are the problem. We're going to take a second as I look at number 8. Number 8 in the conversation starters. We're almost at an hour. We're going to cap it at an hour. And I'll come back with part 2 next week. God is love. Many know that their God essence, yet enjoy being the devil to many to Matt. Many know that they are God in essence, yet enjoy being the devil to many to mask their pain. God is love. Many know what their God essence is, yet enjoy being the devil to too many to mask their pain. And I close with this for conversation starters to think. This is a theme that has been stuck with me for 2 weeks now, and I haven't had a chance to get to it because I stated before, I get, unfortunately, and it's ceasing now as people are coming into higher vibrations, but there have been a lot of highly melanated women, Black American women, who are under either mind control or lack the intellectual experience of knowing anything outside of what trauma is in the city of Chicago, who have literally attacked me and spiritually attacked me and try to create spaces of extreme harm for me because I speak with so much healthiness for our community. A lot of them want to create stand spaces of what I consider to be the plantation mindset. So the last component is what I want to do is eradicate the Frederick Douglass story addiction. This is a component in this period of time when the white woman became the savior in the American story through spiritual manipulation. Frederick Douglass, one of the most prominent human beings in our recent human creation of society, and I won't, just put him into a space of Black American on a global level. He was a huge impact to moving into propelling the human psyche away from the enslavement of anyone. And the story of Frederick Douglass, the reason Frederick Douglass was able to move into a space of, not the reason, but one of the factors, because I believe that this was a child that craved to be in his God essence. So he was going to make it regardless, no matter what. But through the assistance of a less melanated woman who had a shift in consciousness, she decided to teach him the mechanisms of how to read. Now, I want you to understand the shift in consciousness did not just come from a space of just the heart chakra open. It's understanding that you can only enslave people for so long before they revolt. So as a sense of survival, right? It's not always a compassion thing. It's a sense of survival. So, he stated, this is a quote that was said by him, it's easier to build stronger children than to repair broken men. And why that might be true, the attempt or the vessels to repair those humans, because children are just not boys. They're girls and boys, right? Being in the state of extreme slavery will make you value only those who can physically produce materially. And you look to what? The biological male for that. But it is easier to build stronger children than to repair broken adults. That's what I want to place into that. And even if an adult is broken, that the attempt and the spaces to create love and compassion still needs to be addressed. American society, we cannot funnel our elders into a home without companionship and nurturing, because that will reduce us as a society and keep us in the space of fucked upness. Okay, so we got to take some responsibility. But also, as our elders move to a space, you are not without intelligence. You are not without wherewithal. You're not without accountability. You're not without integrity. I've seen so many elders play on their age to say, "Oh, I just don't know." You know what you're doing. You're being fucked up, and you're trying to fuck up our lives as you age up in the experience simply to make yourself feel better. It ain't cool. It ain't right, and I see through the shit. I see through it, and they have put children whom they abuse tremendously in a space of acting like putting them on the pedestal of the children they provided safety for. And they're trying to say, well, justify, well, all this abuse was okay that I put you through. All of the mistakes that happened, this is okay. Now, I don't want to say mistakes. All of the oppression that we experience, oh, this is God's right? Because the person who was provided a certain sense of safety, or who was a shining star and still is, catch that tea. We're gonna fuck up their lives because we have already broke you down mentally. You follow everything we say. No. So getting out of that Frederick Douglass story addiction of the black male child finding gratitude and safety, stability, and intellectual capability through that less melanated white woman. Because what I've seen is, yesterday when I went to the farmer's market, there was a beautiful, highly melanated baby in there. He was on his bike. And, the Hispanic man was like walking behind him and like towering over him, and I looked at him like, yo, back the fuck up. And the baby was like, fuck on, right? And that made me feel some type of way, because it just legitimized my theory. And what I saw is that the less melanated Hispanic community, who deals with a lot of anti-blackness and colorism, they take the most vulnerable Black American men who we have fucking destroyed. Let's make that they're not running over there for no fucking reason. We have tried to paint them as addicts, drug dealers, rapists, molesters, put them in jail, so they run to other communities, and they over there they are God. But these Hispanic men are manipulating these men to turn into fucking weapons of mass destruction towards the Black American community. And tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Because hey, I got some exes that's with Hispanic women, and baby, they can't stand my ass now. And they can't stand me because the women that they touch don't like black women for real. They want to be in charge of us. They still have a colonial perspective. And until they eradicate that colonial perspective and they deal with the healing mechanisms of the killing of the between the Spaniards and the raping and the molestation and the murdering of the indigenous people all the way up to now, because we're not the only ones as Black Americans that's got to deal with it. Until they deal with that, they're going to constantly move in the same way that the white American woman did, with her delaying of her healing mechanism, of walking in her feminine energy in a healing way instead of putting other women at danger. And I can't trust that. So that's what the Frederick Douglass story addiction is. That Black American man, that Black man finding his truth through the femininity of a woman that didn't look like him. Because when he turns to his woman, he sees a slave. That's what it does. The involvement of constant enslavement of human society does to us. And when we look at the recent history, why do you think there was Arabs that were able to come in before anybody else, right? Like at the most recent time, because there's still a constant control of trying to control the highly melanated woman. So they put you in spaces of chemicals and food that they try to, like, this is our culture, because it keeps a certain group of people at a certain sense of power. So when you are eating these things, and you are, think about the trauma that is attached to it and reprogram your mind. You have to reprogram your mind, right? And I encourage highly melanated women to go into a space of standing in companionship of people who love you for real, right? Not highly melanated men who only want to keep you around so that they can pimp your essence out to less melanated women so they can fuck them and turn to them as like, oh, she's not as good as you. No, you're not going to do that with me. And also highly melanated women who go into spaces with less melanated women and then turn around and try to show that they're the better Black person or they're the token Black person. I've met so many highly melanated women who come from the suburbs, who have put me in a space of danger because they think like that white European American woman, in the sense of the disregard for me, for my intelligence, and they have put into a space where we as women on a global level really need to get the fuck out of the ideology of trying to prove who's the better woman by hurting each other's communities. We really need to get over that. And we need to stop blaming men for that. That is within us. That ain't got shit to do with men. Before there were men, there were goddesses. And this world was ran by goddesses. And we degraded ourselves so bad that we turned ourselves into the biological male that has no real love for the woman outside of abusing her. That's the things that we're holding in our DNA. And, just because someone has a vagina does not mean that they're a safe space. And I'm not trying to put fear into anybody. What I'm saying is learn people. Learn whom they are. A lot of people in American society were placed into a space with each other through the public education system. And to be honest with you, it's some people that you should have never fucking been around. As a person in my age now, and I see the mechanisms in which how them adults who came from sororities and fraternities and were talking all that pro-Black shit, how they came into spaces of us as children and projected some fucked up shit to us. It projected timelines in like which child can be a good child can make it, and which child can be hurt, and which child was not a good. And you have to recognize, because I have to be truthful. When I went to the farmer's market, the reason I'm so protective about this highly melanated child is because another highly melanated woman was projecting hatred towards me, towards this child. That's how powerful we are. And I said, baby, I don't feel that way. And I got up and I opened the door for her, and I felt a shift in the room, because when we're surrounded by people who hate us and you're not spiritually attuned to who the fuck you are, you can carry that and you can bring that home. I don't have no hatred towards highly melanated people. I don't have no hatred towards less melanated people. What I don't deal with is people fucking with me and thinking that's okay and justified, because you won't do the labor. You're too intellectually lazy to do the debunking of your socialization, because you might exercise a little fucking privilege in it. And that's why I want to eradicate the 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 addiction to the fixation of American slavery outside of them actually creating any real remedies, right? And also understanding spirituality about drug usage. I'm not going to encourage anyone to move into drug usage because you have people who are highly advanced spiritually who are trying to prey on you. They're trying to prey on you. They want to be in charge of you. They don't want to eradicate shit about this. They want to keep it in place because they have got comfortable with it and they're too afraid to live in reality. And that's what I want to do. I want to eradicate. Next week we're going to talk about the plantation mindset. How many Black American men, 30 and up, because of the vessels of oppression that have been placed, where I see so many beautiful Black American men kicking ass and eradicating that shit, right? And teaming and collaborating with highly melanated Black American women and Black people across the diaspora leveling up. We still have people in their shadows who are trying to create spaces of enslavement for highly melanated people. Because they have a plantation mindset. They feel because life has been so harsh towards them or their limited opportunity, which is really just a mental blockage now, that, you know, and it's real because I live in the city of Chicago. I get spaces of people trying to, what's the word? Stop me from employment opportunities simply because I don't fall into the spaces of colorism or I don't fall into the spaces of what they think I should look like in the Western society. They really just want Black Americans who want to represent a white American woman in order for them to feel comfortable that, you know, you're a signal of submission to white supremacy. And it's highly melanated people who move to invoke that shit, okay? So next week we're going to talk about eradicating the plantation mindset out of the human psyche, specifically tailored to Black Americans. And what does that look like? Well, that looks like holding highly melanated men accountable to move into their intellectualism, to, what's the word? Hold Black American women and Black women who try to destabilize and fuck up Black men in their intellectualism and their growth as a person because they have a slave indoctrination, because they don't feel good about themselves. We have I think the most prominent thing is calling out the Black American woman who wants to stay enslaved in the mind, because you are the reason. Just being honest with you, I love you deeply, but you are the reason in which why Black American men hate us, because you only want to see them in the light of being in prison, a drug dealer, a rapist, or a murderer, or a molester, because you look too highly to the less melanated woman. And then you try to act like you're pro-Black and you ain't. You use that to be conniving and mischievous and get into a space to put highly melanated people in danger because you hate us. In real life. But instead of having the courage to move into a space of learning your human identity outside of the scope of what American society told you could be, you stay in the cycles of oppression and you try to hurt other Black people. And as someone who has felt a strong disdain living where I live at after me, y'all saw me, I'm very pro-Black. I'm very human. I'm a humanist. But after living into a space and dealing with Black American elder women and them trying to abuse me spiritually, mentally, and physically, I'll be real with y'all. I had for a moment, and I see it comes up, I had a hatred and a dislike and a disdain towards Black Americans, because I'm like, you trying to make me stand the space of bumminess. You trying to use my ideas about minimalistic ideals and eradicating flash fashion and eradicating toxic capitalism and creating safe space of socialism as a move to hurt me because you lack the courage to move into a space of identity. Nah, we're not doing that. Oh, the Instagram, the phone died. I didn't talk so much, the phone died. Okay, so we're gonna put that into a space of wrapping that up for the hour. I'm gonna put this on Instagram because I don't want to lose that one. Okay, we got it. All right. So back to what I was saying. Part 2 next week. We went over in time. That's okay. We're all right. But back to what I was saying. Getting to the space of understanding, holding people accountable before you get in community with them, getting to know them, learn them, not stand in spaces of arrangement simply because they want you to stand in spaces of arrangement. I'm going to charge this so I don't lose it. Stand in spaces of arrangement, we're not doing that. We're going to move into a space of fairness, accountability, peace, and equity. And don't get in community with nobody simply because you're familiar with them. No, are you providing me with safety? And that starts with eradicating a lot of this shit that we take as the norm on a daily basis. Okay, have a wonderful day. Ashe. See y'all next week. Oh, don't forget Sensual Awakening classes every Monday, 7 p.m. I'm here. Let's go. Let's open up these hips. Male, female, adults that consent, right? That you're the age of, everybody's at the age, I hate that word. Everybody's at the age of consent. Okay, let's make that very clear. Everybody's at the age of consent. As long as you have a body, you have a spirit, you're at the age of consent. But I prefer adults to enjoy my class of Sensuality Awakening. So look forward to some dance videos that are going to be coming. Please interact with YouTube, RVPP Solutions. Book with us if you have any wellness, meditation, yoga, dance class, and also if you need any research when it comes to pro se advocacy. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope that we can have this, I can have more people come into it. And if you're brave enough, join the conversation. All right. This is Oyo Myra. Think. Have a wonderful day. Ashe.